What if those we trust most to protect our elders are the very ones quietly stealing what they spent years working so hard to build? Yeah, let's talk about that.
Instead of focusing on winning arguments, we're teaching the basic fundamentals of sales and marketing and how we can use them to win in the world of politics, teaching you how to meet people where they're at on the issues they care about. Welcome to The Brian Nichols Show.
Well, hey there, folks. Welcome to today's episode of The Brian Nichols Show. I am, as always, your humble host, joining you from our lovely Cardio Miracle Studios here in sunny Eastern Indiana. The Brian Nichols Show is powered by the best heart health supplement in the world, Cardio Miracle. So, if you want to learn how to lower your resting heart rate, lower your blood pressure while improving your pump at the gym, stick around. We'll talk about that later in today's episode. Or if you're really curious, just go ahead, scan that little QR code over my shoulder, or simply head to cardiomiracle.com/TBNS, and you'll know you're in the right spot when you see a little banner at the top of the screen saying you're shopping with Brian Nichols. But yeah, let's go into today's topic of conversation, and that is, well, what happens as folks get older, right? And I know I have old grandparents myself. My parents, they're getting older. Sorry, mom and dad, it's the truth. But what happens as people get older? All of a sudden, they start getting targeted, not just by the AARP ads, but by malicious actors. And not always is it so obvious. It's not always the guy reaching out from Nigeria. It's not some prince or king who's looking for his long lost love. It's not usually that, but other ways that we've seen issues where this is really taking place. So what happens and how can we help protect our elders? Joining me here to discuss all that and more on the Brian Nichols Show is Rusty Reynolds. Rusty, welcome to the Brian Nichols Show. How you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Great to have you on the show, Rusty. And you're on the show for a reason, because we're going to dig into some legalese here today, right? And we're going to actually talk through some real foolproof, say that 10 times fast, foolproof, there we go, approaches to hopefully help some elders avoid being taken advantage of. But before we do that, let's just kind of set the stage here. Rusty, do us a little favor, introduce yourself here to the Brian Nichols Show audience. Tell us a little bit more about your expertise and your background as we get ready to talk about today's topic of conversation.
Sure. Again, my name is Rusty Reynolds. I've been a lawyer for 25 years. I've been representing and helping people who have been injured by the negligence or exploitation of an individual or corporation. And usually that means somebody they trusted, okay? Think of the physician-patient relationship, okay? We trust doctors more than we trust our own spouse, parent, or child. And so a lot of that plays over into, with a lot of similarities, financial exploitation, because really an injury is a financial exploitation, because when you're injured, it's going to cost medical expenses. It's a taking, okay? And financial exploitation is generally a wrongful, unauthorized taking of money or property. And so injuries are just the same thing. But I've been doing that for 25 years. I started with a firm that were suing HMOs for their influence in manipulating medical decision making. And when that was taken away, we focused on medical malpractice and elder abuse. And with that tort reform, we've diversified into also dealing with premise liability, which is dangerous conditions at businesses, especially when the elderly get there. They have a propensity. As you get older, the elderly belong in a special class of people. Okay, think of minors, think of disabled. The elderly, as you age, they don't have as strong a capacity to protect themselves as they did when they were younger. Same thing with the kids who aren't yet there to be able to protect themselves. So we have them in a special class where the harm, when harm is done to them, the penalty is greater because you've taken advantage of a special class in our population, whether they be the minor, the elderly, or the disabled. Okay, so that's what I've been doing for 25 years, is representing families and individuals who belong in those protected classes against injury and harm.
And speaking of the specific protected classes, we're going to hyper focus today on elder abuse, which, by the way, I know that's not usually like a super sexy thing that people want to talk about, right? Because, I mean, elder abuse, sad, right? But it is something that's real. It's something that we need to address because it's not just elder abuse where it's hidden camera in the nursing home, right? And they catch the nefarious nursing home worker beating up the patient, which it is, but that's not it. That's not the only elder abuse that's out there. There's also elder financial exploitation. And let's talk about why that isn't as looked at or discussed as what leads the 7 o'clock news, right? Where it's, today at 7 o'clock, here's, little Timmy, well, not little Timmy, I guess old Timmy, old Billy getting, beat by the nursing home attendant, right? Like that's what leads the 7 o'clock news. So tell us more about why we're not hearing about the elder financial exploitation.
That's a great question, and I think it lies with the enforcement. There's certainly rules and statutes in place to protect elderly. It's a matter of, is it feasible to enforce it? And when you call the police department or the sheriff's department or the attorney general, it often gets we'll take the information down and you never hear about it again. Not to say that they aren't investigating it. I'm sure they are, and I'm sure there are some forms of people scammers getting brought to justice, but it's probably not as often as you hear about accountability in the medical malpractice or elder physical abuse cases, because there's insurance money there generally and assets there. It's hard to find a scammer, and who's going to pay for that scammer because they're scamming because they don't have money and they're trying to get money. Now they're sophisticated because they're able to spoof phone numbers and get a story down where they can take advantage of you. But you're dealing with somebody who's hard to find and hard to hold accountable. And so if it's not feasible and they don't, nobody goes after them. Even though there are laws in place to support holding them accountable, it's where's the money to do it? Where are the resources to do it? And
there has to be teeth to it. Like actually,
there has to be teeth. There has to be teeth and there has to be money because people get paid to look out for other people, right? And if there's no money at the end of that accountability, then really it's a nonprofit venture, is it not? So I think that's why it is tougher, and these scammers are just hard to find. And the people who are like our law enforcement, it's hard for them to be able to find them and go after them. And so they just end up taking the numbers and money is lost because we're talking, we're talking maybe a few $1,000 give or take on the most common scale, larger sums depending on what's available when they get the information for that bank account, so to speak, or that means. So I think that those amounts people look at as feasibility. Am I going to spend $10,000 to go after $3,000?
Right.
You get upside down and face that feasibility when really it should be taking, because you don't, the police department don't make money on physical harm, but that's what sells. That's what, it's easy to be able to see that, whereas financial harm is more invisible,
Yeah, this is what we were seeing in California, right? With as long as it's under $1,000, you can steal it, I guess. Like that, right. And of course, what happens? They're stealing $785 worth of stuff, and it's like, that still has pain. There's still an ouch there. I guess let's talk about this a little bit more because it is one thing to say, okay, well, when it happens, good luck. good luck getting any real support here by law enforcement. So let's try to play defense, right? Let's try to block this from even happening in the first place. So the first way to do that, playing defense, is to know what we're actually looking out for. So what are the different channels that we're seeing a lot of these folks leverage to try and take advantage of elders? Is it just, the traditional email? Is it phone calls and other stuff? You've spent your whole life building something meaningful. A career, a family, a legacy. But none of that matters if your health can't keep up. And the truth is, as we age, our body's natural production of nitric oxide, which is vital for circulation and heart function, declines sharply. And that drop increases your risk for high blood pressure, poor oxygen flow, and even cognitive decline. You don't feel like yourself, and no doctor seems to have an answer that doesn't involve more prescription medication. And that's why I recommend Cardio Miracle, because it's an all-in-one blend of nitric oxide boosters like L-arginine, L-citrulline, organic beets, and more that support your cardiovascular system, brain function, and your immune response. It's not about reversing time, it's about giving your body what it needs to keep showing up strong. You've worked too hard to feel like you're fading. So, scan that little QR code over my shoulder, click the link in the show notes, or go to cardiomiracle.com/TBNS and get back in control of your health. And look for the little note saying you're shopping with Brian Nichols on the Cardio Miracle homepage. One more time, that's cardiomiracle.com/TBNS. And now, let's get back to the show.
It is. It's how can I get engagement? So I like what you were talking about. It's kind of like doing operating a prevent defense scheme, right? So it is traditional means of getting on the phone with them to or an email or a text representing a trusted source. Okay, whether it's the bank or maybe a family member that you haven't had that you know about but you've lost contact with, and it's hard to discern who this is, and they're saying stuff to you that where you have that trust, and it's transferred over to this misrepresented scheme. And so if you've always trusted Wells Fargo and they're saying they're Wells, and that's where your bank account is, and this person is saying there's Wells Fargo, they immediately have a hook because they've got that trust. So it's not going to be somebody unfamiliar, and it's not going to be somebody with a foreign accent, right? So it's going to have to be a way of communication that's easy for your family member, your loved one, your friend to be able to recognize, to be able to get that hook. So that's where I see the scams in my experience occurring. And so I think how do we prevent that? And when we look at preventing it, the biggest thing you can do for your loved one is time. Regular time spent with your loved one. That builds the authentic trust that allows you to be able to have these conversations about scams. Because, I mean, as you get older, you don't want to admit that you're vulnerable, but some people, it's easy to know that you're vulnerable. I mean, so
Yep.
When you spend time with your mom, your dad, your grandparent, or your elderly friend, it's that trust that you're building so that you can have those conversations. And, it's not that you look at a scam and everything that they touch or talk to, but, it's just developing that routine for, example, when you're meeting with your loved one, say on a regular basis, once a week, it can start with just looking over at their medications. Are they taking the right medications according to their doctors? Then you can say, okay, can that audit transfer over to their bank account? And auditing anything strange there. Okay. And so as you do these audits, you're able to catch anything that sticks out. You're looking for the, obviously if they've got automatic pay on some of their bills, that's solid. But when you see something that's not routine, then that sticks out. And same thing if you don't do those audits, but you haven't seen your loved one, or they're more recluse, then you see a change in behavior, a change in condition. That could signal that something bad has happened. Okay, that they're embarrassed to talk about. And so time spent with them is going to be the biggest tool in your arsenal to be able to then set the stage for identifying if something's happened and preventing it from happening going further.
It reminds me, there's two things. So my past life, I worked as a technology advisor out in the Philadelphia market. And we used to do a lot of cybersecurity stuff. And one of the big things we'd do for cybersecurity is it'd be like phishing tests or phishing campaigns against staff, and the whole idea would be to try to show staff what to look for, right? Is it Microsoft.com or is it Microsoft where the O is a 0 and you didn't realize it, and oops, you clicked the link. Oh no, right. You got hacked. Right. Like we would do those kind of campaigns. You do the education, you do the trainings and the awareness campaigns, because that's, it's important to pay attention. And again, you're right. It's not you're trying to scare people, right? Or you're not trying to make it so like this is doom and gloom, but it's like you need to be aware. I mean, I go back to one of my favorite YouTube channels is a group of guys called Corridor Crew, and they do it's like CGI and it's all special effects in film. And they break down how, film has utilizing all these different technologies, neither here nor there. But what they also do is dabble into the world of AI. And they did this whole video where they had their older parents who were in their probably like late 50s, early 60s. And they actually sat down and did a crash course of, hey, these are things to look out for with AI that are red flags, that it's AI, especially with the advent of technologies like AI voice cloning, where you can take recordings of people who have, I don't know, podcasts with over 1,000 episodes. Oh no, right? And take their voice and then turn it into a little AI voice agent. You can use AI video now to create videos that look like a person, like take a video of somebody, I don't know, who has, again, thousands of hours of video on YouTube. Oh no, right? And then turn it into an actual video. So like, these are the things that people can use technology to create right now. And that's something that's reality. So it's important to get parents prepped for that. So with that in mind, like, what other areas do you think we should be helping, again, prepare parents for? Like, do you see anything beyond where we are today that we should start paying more attention to? Or are there older methods? Like, I mean, snail mail, for example, is like, are we seeing snail mail being leveraged to try to take advantage of seniors, or email or anything like that?
Yeah, I think it's all being leveraged, and I think email, text messages, alerts coming out, pop-up alerts, and so as the our loved ones continue to, because it's hard to separate yourself from the electronic devices, and that's why I think time is the most important thing. They're getting attacked on all fronts, and again, it's trusted. It's to mirror as much as possible that trusted source. Where if it's a website, there may be one letter off, but because your site. I mean, you and I are both using reader glasses, but I mean, your site's just not as great as you age. We got aging eyes, and so it's hard to see the nuances. And if it looks, and you're getting so much, and you're scrolling, and you get into the habit of even our loved ones are scrolling, and they pop on something, and lo and behold, they're off to the races, and they've let the scammer in. So I think talking about it, awareness, to reduce the level of shame that it can, because you've got to treat your loved ones with respect, but talking about how even the smartest people get scammed. Look at Enron. I mean, you talk about Enron, how very savvy investors getting scammed. You talk about the federal government, very savvy auditing, getting scammed still, So, I mean, it's not just the elderly, the special capacity, although they're targeted because of their reduced capacity. But, the idea that, hey, look, we all get scammed. Okay. So the idea is just to be able to talk about it and make it look like, normalize the talk, so that you can then work together and not hide stuff from each other, when you get scammed.
Does it feel like your office has quietly turned into a mini call center? I mean, you didn't plan for it, but between the customer service calls, the sales follow-ups, and team check-ins, the phones are ringing nonstop, and you're stuck managing it all with a setup built for 2012. And that's what I call the accidental contact center. And it's more common than you think. Level 365 makes it easy for you to level up. You'll get call routing, full call history, real analytics without buying some massive contact center platform. It's plug-and-play simplicity for businesses that suddenly found themselves taking way more calls than expected. If that sounds like you you should check out Level 365.
Yeah, and there's a lot of technologies nowadays, by the way, that help with this. So, for example, if you have an older parent and they are not good with their cell phone and they're constantly having issues trying to make the cell phone work, there are almost like team viewer apps that you can give to you can give to your grand or your parent or your grandparent for that matter, right? And if they say, oh, I don't know where my camera app went, right? You can
Right.
actually team view in, and you can start to basically help troubleshoot from either hundreds of miles away, or you can just next door. You can still do it. It doesn't matter. So like
That's
there's
a
tools like
great
that.
tool. Yeah, that's a great tool
Absolutely right.
because how many times are you getting called about a password? I lost my password or I can't
Yeah.
sign in,
Yep.
and so, and then, passwords are another layer of security that can easily be taken advantage of. And so if you're helping out with that mirroring can help you stay on top of what they're doing. And so they've got a second pair of eyes looking at what they're looking at. So it's not a scam. It's legit trying to figure out, is this password going to the right source,
And one thing I found successful too was having like like I say, like a safe word, right? Like something that only your your parent or your grandparent would know, right? Like just something that it couldn't be found online, right? Like it's only it's that little funny family secret, right? It's that just ask me something only really I would know, and that's something that I think is important too. Is that we almost need to fire drill this, right? Like, hey, if
Yeah.
someone calls pretending to be me, you have to ask them what grandma, what do you have to ask, right? And what's our keyword, right? Like just get that to be familiar,
Yeah.
because otherwise, I mean, the way the technology is going,
Yeah.
whew,
Yeah, but how fun is that? I mean, so then you turn it into, this inside game, or my kids would call it inside joke, where you and your parent and the whole family has got that password. So between the grandkids, the parent, and the grandparent, and so I mean, it's almost like us versus them. And so
right
there's lots of ways you can do that. I think that make it fun, but also very, very functional and useful.
now. Now, one thing I do want to ask, because and this might be a controversial question, but it is the fine line. It's like, oh goodness, grandpa's getting old. I don't know if I want to behind the wheel. I mean, goodness, like it's not so much even for him anymore. It's for other people. I'm a little nervous. Like you mentioned, our eyesight gets bad when we're, in our middle ages, but like, get older, it gets even worse. Like your reaction time
Mhm.
slows down.
Sure.
Same thing is true for the financial and such for old folks. And I guess the question is, what is that fine line, right, Rusty? Like where do we respect the autonomy of the elders while at the same point in time acknowledging the just dirty rotten truth that we all go through aging, right? And it impacts us in ways that we just don't realize it until it's there. And even then, at times, we don't realize it's happening. Like, what's that line of saying, hey, mom, hey, dad, hey, grandma, hey, grandpa, it's time to, it's time to turn the bank account over. It's time to
Yeah.
turn the keys in.
That's a great question, and it almost seems like it's a case by case basis. But I think the sooner you start talking about it and normalizing it, the sooner it becomes you're treating your loved one with respect, versus if it's at the last minute and it's more of a taking versus a
Crushed.
joint agreement. Yeah, crushed or not. And with my mom, it was, there were several fender benders that just kind of set the stage. And but with my uncle, it's very difficult, and so it's a different ball game there, and I don't know when that's going to happen. And so it is a case by case basis, but I do think the sooner you talk about it, the better chance you have to where it's a recognized joint agreement, a trust agreement, you're doing things with respect. Because think about when you because the way you can put yourself in their shoes is when you were younger and you wanted more freedom. Okay, you're taking away freedom. So I mean,
Right.
it's that same kind of respect that you want to give, right? And so, I think if you can do it that way, that's the goal. And then as you do that, and it takes time because you can't just come up and be do a taking. Okay, I think because you run that risk of crushing, and you it's a detriment to the relationship. So when Medicare looks at how they pay nursing homes, how they pay hospitals, they for long-term care. Okay, they look at nurse hours per resident per day. And so when you think about how much influence you want to have on your family, how much influence somebody has on you, it's it's how much time are you spending with each other? I mean, that makes a big difference because that's where you build that trust to talk about these kinds of changes that make sense for not only their protection but for the protection of the community. And then, you can take those next steps of monitoring or taking it over or sharing the account, depending on the level of capacity that they still have or have lost.
So, Rusty, as we go towards the tail end of the episode, I like to frame things up for final thoughts. And I think one thing I do want the audience to take away from this conversation is that it's so important to have an open dialogue on these sometimes tough topics. Like, hey, mom, hey, dad, you're not good at cybersecurity, right? Like, here's things you got to look out for. Hey, by the way, like, here's why we got to pay attention to, when you're getting phone calls from your bank, like, is it your bank? Questions like that. But also, hey, we got to prepare for the future, right? Like, things can happen and they can happen really fast. And I remember when I was a kid, there was a former county legislator, and I'll respect his family, but his name was Don, and he was very well functioning. I mean, could have conversations. I remember seeing him at church, and then it was like a year or two later, and he was in the nursing home with, I think it was dementia or Alzheimer's, I forget which one, but like just like completely crushed as a human being. Like, he was no longer that man I remembered from church. And I was like, what happened to him? How did this happen that fast? Right. And it was that moment, that fast, in the progress at which he declined. It really does open your eyes to say, like, hey, you might be fine today, and that's great. God bless. Let's continue that route. But things do happen, and when they do happen, they can happen very quickly. So it is important to start having these conversations now. Get a plan, right? Start talking through these contingencies, as uncomfortable as they may be. Like, I didn't like when I was in cybersecurity, making a company think of their worst case scenario. Like, hey,
Right.
let's just pretend you guys got ransomware. Right? Like, what do we do? Right? That's not fun to think about, but you got to think about it so you can be prepared. So God forbid it happens. Now it's not a matter of thinking, what do we do? It's a matter of executing. So that's my final thoughts for today. Rusty, bring us home. What do you got for us?
Yeah, well, I would to piggyback on that. I would say, you can compare it to the locks on your house, okay? And so as you want to try to stay secure there, you want to match that security elsewhere. And there are elder lawyers in your community that you can talk about, and do it when you first retired. The sooner you do it, the better. They can help put together a plan, and when that plan's in place, then it's not a surprise, okay? And you can talk about the stages of how you want help to protect your assets, to protect yourself, so that your assets can go as far as you need them to go to care for you. So look into elder lawyer in your area. Look into the lawyer who's done your will, or if you still need to have that done, that lawyer who does your will. They will be able to help you put together that plan in place with your loved ones, so that it's a community effort, okay, among your core family or your core loved ones that have your back.
And Rusty, it sounds like you might be an expert in this. So if folks want to reach out and learn more, specifically if they're maybe in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, I don't know, just a hunch, where can they go ahead and do so?
Yeah, so you can reach out to me at 214-891-6606. You can certainly Google my name and find me. I'm in Frisco, which is where the Dallas Cowboys practice, and so I'm right across the street from them. So I'm by the Stars. So if you think Dallas Cowboys, you can think that's where I'm located, and it's at www.rrl firm.com, and that stands for Reynolds and Reynolds Law Firm.com, rrlfirm.com. But you can, again, Google Rusty Reynolds or Russell Reynolds, and you'll find me in Frisco.
Good stuff, Rusty. That's been a great conversation. Yeah, folks, they're very well familiar at this point from since, I guess, 2018 that I am a sad Dallas Cowboys fan. So yeah, no, they are very well aware. But with that being said, Rusty, thank you for joining us, folks. If you got some value from today's conversation, do me a favor, go ahead and give it a share. When you do, tag yours truly at B Nichols Liberty. You can find us over on Facebook, on X, and on Instagram. As for the Brian Nichols Show, you can find us on your favorite podcasting platforms like Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube Music, wherever it is you consume your podcasting content. Or if you like to watch your shows, head to Rumble, YouTube, Facebook, or Twitter. We live stream our episodes every Monday, Thursday, and Fridays at 9 p.m. Eastern. So make sure you've hit that subscribe button so you don't miss a single time we go live. Rusty, any final words before we wrap things up today?
Thank you for having me, and go Cowboys.
Go Cowboys. That's right. All right, folks. One final ask. Yeah. If you enjoy, there we go. If you enjoyed the show, please go ahead and support the show by supporting the folks who support us, like our phenomenal studio sponsor, Cardio Miracle. You can head to cardiomiracle.com/TBNS. But with that being said, Brian Nichols signing off here on the Brian Nichols Show for Rusty Reynolds. I'll see you next time.
Thanks for listening to the Brian Nichols Show. Find more episodes at briannicholsshow.com.